New Macs may be revealed really soon. The incredibly reliable Mark Gurman of Bloomberg wrote an article saying the next Macs are coming as soon as the summer. If you read that article, there's not a lot new here. I don't want to waste your time. Let's start with the MacBook Pro. This is the line that would be refreshed first. The new MacBook Pros would come in two sizes, 14 and 16 inches. They would have a new body design and bring back ports that would be useful to any computer user. There would be an HDMI port for connecting displays, and the SD card slot would return. The MacBook Pro line has always been aimed at creative professionals. Requiring them to have a dongle for everything, including a reader for an SD card, seemed a bit silly for a Pro machine. This would be a welcome and very convenient change. Like the new iMac and older MacBook Pros, magnetic MagSafe would be on these new machines. If you're clumsy like me and trip on wires, MagSafe coming back seems like a good idea. As an aside, you can also invest in a magnetic adapter for your USB-C cable. Just make sure it doesn't block the usage of other ports. Back to that MacBook Pro. Inside, we're looking at a more powerful system on a chip than the current M1. The M1 has 4 high-performance cores, 4 energy-efficient cores, and 8 graphics cores. The new chip would feature 8 high-performance cores, 2 energy-efficient ones, and 16 or 32 graphics cores. The chip would also support more Thunderbolt ports. That is a lot of power. Apple's own chips have been very power efficient. If the company can get that many cores into its M1 successor, I'm curious what, if any, effect it's going to have on battery life. That's not all for power, by the way. These new MacBook Pros would also support up to 64 gigabytes of RAM. The M1 tops out at 16. That's a significant jump. More RAM means you can run more apps at the same time, and they're going to run well. When would we see these new MacBook Pros? Bloomberg said it could be as soon as this summer. A site called AppleTrack says that maybe we will see it at Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference. The site pointed out something in the new invite to Apple's conference. If you zoom into the reflection of one of the characters' eye, there are 3 emoji characters, but their info is in their Unicode name. The 3 emoji are fork and knife, sleeping, and a MacBook. Beneath and above the code is the word true. Now, WWDC is a developers conference, so there will definitely be software. Apple has introduced hardware like the current Mac Pro at the event before, so it is possible that Apple could introduce a new laptop at its developers conference. Gurman also says that a new MacBook Air and lower-end MacBook Pro would pop up after the introduction of the MacBook Pro I was just talking about. They both would use the same chip as each other. This chip would have the same amount of cores as the M1, but be faster. Their graphics cores may increase though. Further away is a new Mac Pro, which could come out in 2022. This would look like the current Mac Pro, but be smaller in size. As it is the Mac Pro, you're going to find a ton of power. The new Mac Pro would have 20 or 40 core variations. For high performance cores, you're looking at 16 or 32. For high efficiency, 4 or 8. Graphics cores would be 64 or 128. The roadmap so far makes lots of sense. Get developers access to more powerful machines in the MacBook Pro as soon as possible. Have them develop apps that can properly take advantage of Apple's own chips. Then, release the new Mac Pro in 2022 when all major software for Macs runs natively on the non-Intel chips. It's hard to sell a pricey desktop like the Mac Pro when the software running on it is being translated on the fly by Apple's Mac OS. However, non-native apps may run just fine based on the sheer amount of computing power Apple is throwing in the Mac Pro. Also, the performance jump makes sense if Apple wants to create separation between its iPad and Macs. Right now, the iPad Pro and the 13-inch MacBook Pro run on the same chip. They both top out at 2 terabytes of storage and 16 gigs of RAM. Make the laptops more powerful to differentiate the lines. Also in the cards is a larger iMac and a higher-end Mac Mini. Apple could finish its transition away from Intel as soon as 2022. What does that mean? I would avoid buying any Intel Mac unless having an Intel chip in your Mac is mission critical to you. Expect Apple to support older Intel Macs for several years before drawing a line in the sand as it's done in years past. Pricing information was not discussed. However, I would imagine Apple would be trying to keep the same price points as the current lines. Would anyone complain if the Mac Pro did not start at $6,000? Nope. I'm also curious about how the Mac Pro is going to handle expansion. Will you be able to install anything other than hard drives? Which companies will be making hardware for these Macs? Will it be like that garbage can Mac Pro where you detach things externally through Thunderbolt? Apple, we know you're watching this. Let us know in the comments. Have you jumped over to the M1 camp already, or are you waiting for these new machines? Let me know. I'm Ayaz Akhtar, and I'll see you online. Still here? Wondering why the guy with the Android doll is covering Apple? Did you know that Apple was my beat long before joining CNET? True story.